a hip hop lyricist, a comedian, writer, television host, podcaster, mentor, and producer, and now guest of the number one environmental justice podcast in the country, The Coolest Show. HeadKrack, my brother, how are you?
Doing great, Rev. Thank you so much for having me. Like, it's crazy. Like, when you read all those things off, I'm like, who did all that? Oh, makes you feel like I'm 100 years old. But man, like, I mean, when you're working at the speed of light, sometimes you don't realize all the things you're putting together in the process, right?
Yeah. No, that's how it goes. So we're gonna get to some real serious stuff. We're gonna get to the environment, the climate. We're gonna get to our community. We're gonna get to how culture impacts all that. But you are from the Bronx, the boogie
Yes,
down,
sir.
right? So I'm starting this off with something that's gonna be, hopefully it's not controversial at all.
Okay.
But this is my first question to you. You got to go to war. You can only take the folks from the Bronx with you. That's it.
All right.
You can't take nobody else when you go into war. As far as on the music standpoint, you can take 5, like you got your 5. So who are you going to take with you? You got to go up against LA. You got to go up against Atlanta. You got to go up against Detroit. Even other boroughs. You go up against Harlem, which is Manhattan. You got to go up against, Queens. So who are you taking? You going to take Cardi B? You going to go old school? You can anybody. You can take Big Pun, Fat Joe, French Montana, Swiss
Beats. What is
the
nature of this battle? So is it more of like a lyrical bar for bar kind of thing, or is it like
it's just music? You can even take J Lo. Then you can take it's just music.
Okay,
you can take J Lo if you want to. It's a musical. It's definitely in our culture music. So yeah. So that's what you got.
I definitely got to take KRS-One.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? That is the blast master. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Also got to bring Slick Rick. I know a lot of people give him credit from being from the UK, but Slick Rick's a Bronx guy. Okay. He has those catalog records that people can sing word for word, top to bottom, Children's Story, Lottie Dottie, The Show, Teenage Love. Right. It goes on and on. Also, we keeping it Bronx for a little bit. I also gotta bring Greg Nice from Nice and Smooth. Wow. Or if I can cheat and merge them into one person and twist them together and say Nice and Smooth is one, because Greg Nice is a consummate party rocker. Yeah. And then when he got his man Smooth B, you got vocals as well as the party rock aspect to it, right? So also you got to represent for the females. So yes, let's bring out Cardi B. Okay. Cardi B got to be there.
Roster. She was hanging on. She was hanging on the bench. It was like the All-Star Weekend selection. She was on the bench there for a little bit.
Indeed. And last but not least, some diversity, because we ain't the only ones that built this culture. Got to bring out the Boricua himself, the one and only Fat Joseph, because he also has an extensive catalog that I feel like is stand up against just about anybody. So I think I like my odds with this squad right here.
Man, no, I think you got a good. No, I think you're gonna have a lot of folks. I mean, I think you definitely gonna go. That's a Final Four squad.
Yeah, and I had to go with a lot of vets, right? Because a lot of new people don't know how to do a show.
I was gonna say you got some young ones out there who doing it now.
A few. I hear a lot of people rapping over their vocals. It hurts my ears. I'd rather put a Q-tip in my ear and fall on it sometimes when I watch these people rock out. But at the end of the day, like those people who could just say, give me the beat and just go for it, or even if they don't have their own beat and could just make things happen, I think I have a few people in this squad that could do it, myself included.
Let me ask you a question. You didn't take Swiss Beats with you?
Yeah. There's a lot of people that I also could have grabbed. I mean, you got Cool Keith.
I'm just saying it from a producer's team. He might be but I'm just
Damn, like Cool Keith would have been a hell of a DJ. Yeah. But then, like, if we're bringing DJs into this, we got to talk Funkmaster Flex. Yeah. Who's also from the Bronx as well.
Nice.
And who's hosting the battle? If we got it, can I pull a Bronx host? Can Tracy Morgan host the battle?
I like you bringing a home field advantage in that. I like that a lot.
And you're going to keep the crowd laughing and entertained too. So that's also a plus side as well.
Oh, man. Well, there you go, folks. You got HeadKrack's 5 from the Bronx. You heard it right here. So lock it in that process. HeadKrack, for artists of our climate-minded folk, tell us, who is HeadKrack?
HeadKrack is a renaissance man. I mean, I do a little bit of everything. I was actually having this conversation with my manager the other day, and she was asking me, like, like, yo, like when we put out this next project, how do you want to classify it? Do you want to classify it as hip hop? And for this next project, yes, it is still a hip hop project. But I think sometimes, or even not even sometimes, like more so than ever, you're seeing a lot of people be like non-genre artists, right? Whereas like they rap, but they also can fall back into a bag and a little bit and sing. Like A Boogie with the hoodie, Drake, even people like Childish Gambino, who a lot of people got familiar with from the mixtape era, and now you have to really work hard to get him to rap. You know what I'm saying? Because he does the singing thing so much. So on the music side of things, I'm an artist. On the media side of things, I am hopefully in the eyes of the public that hip hop face and voice that you recognize in the mainstream. Because a lot of people that champion the culture the way I do don't necessarily get the opportunities to get a platform like I have and really represent and wave the flag for the culture. You know what I'm saying? Because like I don't 100% rock with everything that's commercially hot because I think some of it is kind of negative overall to the culture. So I try to put people onto new things that can not only raise their consciousness, but talented people who deserve that shot. And even on the Dish Nation side of things, before the year 2000, give or take my man from TMZ with the dreads, who else did you see on TV 5 days a week that looked like me representing for the culture? So I'm hip hop's guy. You know what I'm saying? And like, I speak from the heart. You can't buy my opinion. My opinion will always be my own. And at the end of the day, I do it for the culture.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I appreciate that so much. As you know, for me, being in this for now over 20 years, doing the hip hop political side of this process, it is so important for those in media to do it for the culture and to understand how important they are in their platform. And so I just want to thank you for this trying. And I know it's not easy because I've been around long enough to know that's not as easy as it sounds, folks. And so I want to thank you. Who was your community?
Like growing up or like currently?
Yeah, like just in general, like who you rock with? Like I know within the culture, media, I know within maybe the business, but who do you think you are responsible to? Like when you gotta, like when I do things in this work from hip hop politics, I'm fighting for Black people, Indigenous people. I'm fighting for communities in urban communities. I'm fighting for those who are oppressed. Like that's what I see when I'm doing what I got to do. So, who was your community in that aspect?
For me, I feel like I'm fighting for the voiceless, the people who feel like their opinions aren't heard. I feel like I'm fighting for abstract, out the box thinkers who doesn't necessarily need a a trend thrown upon them, because like I know a lot of times people will do stupid things because it's trendy, and it's cool to admit that some trends are stupid. So like people who can like take the red pill instead of the blue pill and understand that like even though this is what everybody's doing, this isn't the way we need to be rocking. Those are the people that I'm trying to reach, because not everybody's always going to get it, especially when you're like, you're running uphill with a concept that doesn't seem as fun as everything else. You know what I mean? So if you're willing to listen and you're willing to have an open mind and zag instead of zig, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to the people who says their favorite color is camouflage. I'm talking to the people who if you could have 3 wishes, what would you wish for? Those people that would say 10,000 more wishes. You know what I mean? Not the 1+1 is always 2 people, even though that is the answer, but the people who can who are willing to find a new way and still a new way of thinking. It's not a black thing or a white thing with me, because I feel like the real war is between classes, and they use other things as distractions to throw people off. Because at the end of the day, we're all fighting the same fight, and we're all trying to get a roof over the top of our head, maintain for the longest, and food on our table consistently 7 days a week. So if you're with that struggle, then you with me, and I'm fighting for you.
That's amazing. Speak about the birthplace of hip hop, the Bronx. And for those who don't know what I just said and understand it, explain to them what is the birthplace of hip hop
Got you.
for our listeners.
So hip hop is often regarded as the birthplace of hip hop. Started at a party on Sedgwick and Cedar. When DJ Kool Herc threw a jam in the
In the
basement of this
Bronx.
project building in the Bronx, right? But I mean, when you really do the knowledge, man, and go deeper back, man, it was MCs way before even there was like like park jams in New York and whatnot, like because like Cab Calloway with his call and response things that he was doing, and even there's a guy named Pigmeat Markham who was like a comedian from back in the days. You could pull his stuff up on YouTube. I'm talking about from like the 40s, the 30s, and the 50s. This dude is doing classically what is considered rap. And I think sometimes that's where the lines get blurred, right? They may say that hip hop started in the Bronx. I think that's when hip hop got organized, right?
Mm.
But the elements have always been there. Like even when you look at ancient Egypt and you look at the pyramids and the hieroglyphics that they was like writing on the wall, that was them making a mark and telling a story, but in the way that they were doing it back then. So when you look at the way graffiti was coming up in the 80s and 90s as well, they were doing the same thing as the Egyptians were doing. But, this is a more modern style of it. But, cats didn't know what to call it. There's always been dancing. I look at old videos of people dancing, like in black and white videos and stuff like that. Some of it is somewhat reminiscent of breakdancing, not as complex as like the windmill and whatnot, but like it's all these elements have always been there. But I think it took to like the late 70s for it to finally bind all these things together and really truly call it hip hop culture. Because a lot of
Mm.
times people will like explain hip hop as just the dynamic of rapping, but there's the DJ portion, there's the graffiti portion, there's the dance portion. You want to go even further, you could say beatboxing, you could say fashion, all those things. So I think it took I think it took the Bronx in the 80s to really bind it together, call it a thing, and that's how we started rolling. And me being young when all this stuff was happening, and when I say young, like, like I was born at the end of the 70s, right?
Mhm.
So I'm still living in the Bronx at this time, and this is when you still had to make appointments to be a part of hip hop culture because radio wasn't playing hip hop.
Wow.
Not like that. You'd have to stay up to like 1,000,000 at night to hear a DJ play a record, or you'd have to wait for that rap break on an R&B song, like with Shaka Khan, "I Feel for You." Like I used to live for the Melly Mel part on "I Feel for You," or when New Edition would "Cool It Now," like the part, I got a girl, who cares what you like, it wasn't as readily available. Now you turn your TV on, hip hop is in rap is in commercials and rap is everywhere. But back in the early 80s, it wasn't really like that. So it was interesting to see it grow because like it was a lot like the movies. You see people
Mm.
breakdancing outside in the corner, and when you go like to the mid to late 80s, early 90s, you go to hip hop clubs, cats be outside rhyming in ciphers, and after the party's over, cats be doing an open mic thing. But it took a while for it to get there. So to watch it grow from like the secret thing that we would do, like how cats was doing alcohol in the prohibition era, to now it being readily available. And I feel like that's why people treat it like it's so disposable. It's amazing how far it's come.
Is that good or bad though? I mean, and it's good because it has created a lot of wealth,
Mhm.
opportunity. We got that part. But is it good or bad? Because hip hop in the beginning was also, they would say, it was the CNN for us. It was an
Mhm.
opportunity for us to use that, and it was primarily black in some cases.
Right.
So now, where are we now? I mean, nothing wrong with how it's grown, but is it good or bad that it has become so commercialized?
I think it's good because it's created so many jobs and opportunities for so many people. You know what I mean? There's so many people who eat off the culture. Unfortunately, the people that get the larger plates don't necessarily always look like us.
Hmm.
And that is something that I sometimes have a problem with when I see people who are considered gatekeepers,
Hmm.
who are more so occupying a space and place of like, yeah, pay me for this interview and we'll help you out. You know what I mean? And it's just like, well, you're kind of a guest in the culture and you're eating off the culture. If it wasn't for the culture, you wouldn't be here. So, like those certain things I kind of have a problem with. But overall, I think I think if you talk to multiple people about their um their exposure to hip hop and the type of good or bad hip hop, I think you'll get different answers. because I'll talk to somebody who knows who NBA YoungBoy is, but have no idea who Pharoah Monch is.
Hmm.
And then I could talk to somebody who knows who Pharoah Monch is, a female in her mid-20s, early 20s, who has no idea who DaBaby is. So people are finding what they like and what they're into, but
Facts.
you almost got to find your tribe. And the crazy thing is it's truly always been that way. Sometimes people will be like, man, hip hop was so much better in the 90s. Like, no, there was trash in the 90s. We had to dig through a lot of horrible records to find the things that we were into, but it was like curated differently than it is now. Because like even me who works on the radio, like I literally would rather stare into the sun for 45 minutes than listen to a lot of the stuff that's played. But I know that there's options. There's other things we can listen to. You know what I mean? But like I just turn it into white noise in my head and then I just rock out. So somebody somewhere is eating, but the problem is I think with the too much ease of access that hip hop is right now, nothing special because like it's all and that goes in the music space and that goes in the movie space too. Like how many Netflix movies that you just watched in the comfort of your crib that were Netflix originals do you truly remember? Versus you taking the time to go to the movie theater, make that appointment and go watch a movie or go to the Blockbuster, go get the DVD and physically hold it in your hand. And I feel like that same thing goes with music. There was something about grabbing a disc and holding it in your hand and open it
Yeah.
up and see who the people thanked and all that other things because you made an appointment to do that. Crazy thing, it's not even a game. It's like it's not even a movie. It's Pitfall for PlayStation. But you get the drift. It's something about touching things that I think made it
No.
more special. So I think the fact that everything is in the cloud, I think that's a bad thing. Because the second someone doesn't agree with something that someone said on a record, that song goes away, that album goes away. There's albums I used to listen to on iTunes and Spotify that I went back to go listen to. I was like, yo, where? It's not there anymore. What the hell? But if you had the physical copy,
You got it.
you Gucci.
One thing I've said on this show has been that part of the birthplace of hip hop is also part of the birth aspects to the climate movement.
Okay.
So when the Bronx Causeway is built by Robert Moses, and it literally divides the Bronx, and it causes redlining, and literally creates, what you mentioned before, from the crack epidemic and just horrific poverty. And to be honest, it literally is a way of white flight and folks literally passing over the community. In that aspect, the pollution, the poverty is created by the highways that are created in that system. And in many cases, the pollution that is actually then put into the Bronx, in many cases, literally harms that community. Literally making that how hip hop actually comes to be is literally out of the pollution and poverty. When you hear that kind of analogy then of hip hop kind of put with environmental justice, how does that make you feel actually?
Um, it feels accurate because
Yeah.
I've saw it. I've seen it with my own eyes. Like the Bronx was the dirtiest borough in New York. And when you go to these other places that were a little bit more cared about, like the Queens is, even when you go upstate, which is, adjacent to the Bronx, go to Yonkers. It's completely different. But it seems like the Bronx is where the other the other four boroughs dumped all their problems and all their trash. Or where like the least amount of care was put. And like, hey, we're gonna drive through the Bronx to get to these other places. People used to come to the Bronx to go to the zoo and Yankee Stadium. And other than that, if you live there, it just, it was what it was. So yeah, no, that's a great view to put on there because I never really thought about it like that. But when you put it in that perspective, yeah, you're absolutely right. And
Yeah.
and I think, when you look at historically, the places where there's the most adversity, the lack of things, and the maximum amount of grime, that's sometimes where you get the trendiest art and the greatest things because people are looking for that escape. You
Mm.
see it in Detroit, why like so many artists from Detroit are just notoriously good because like, they come from just they're looked at as the grimiest of the grimiest, the lowest of the lowest. It's the city no one cares about. But and that creates art and creativity because people are looking for an escape and they do that through art. So so it takes those bad things to make that positive flip. I feel.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm with you, but how do we make having a political analysis part
Okay.
of the culture beyond what we hear on AM or talk radio? Is it only when we experience a loss or a big business merger like Beats by Dr. Dre or whatever that it becomes relevant? How do we take this to the next level within our normal cultural conversation?
I think continuing to beat the drum and bring light to these narratives because I think a lot of times people overlook things. There's certain artists who you only hear their music when they die
Mm,
or if they pass away, and like we have to talk about things on more of a regular basis just to bring awareness to it and not just when something bad happens or when we need to make a point because you know a lot of people don't have an opportunity to tap into a podcast like the Coolest Show to have that aha moment. So we just have to elevate the voices of the people who know how to make those analogies so more people can hear the word and hear the narrative because like sometimes it's just about you know if I like just showed just your head on the camera and just a little bit of a tree, I mean a little bit of plant life behind you, it looks like there's marijuana behind you, but if I zoom out you'll realize that there's other plants. So I think we're seeing so much of a smaller picture and not a larger picture that we have to like pull the lens back so we can get more of the other narratives that are popping out there. But that is
it is.
Bitcoin, isn't
It is.
it?
When I first campaigned at the Hip Hop Caucus was actually
There's at
green the
least
block.
another plant, though.
Yeah,
Give me
no.
something else.
No, I'm just saying. I'm with you because when we had our first campaign, green the block, everybody was like, "Yo, we with that." It was like, "Yes, climate change." Oh, that kind of green the block. It's like, okay, dang. we not talking. Whatever it works, listen, we try to make out everything work though. We try to figure out what gets our folks
But
going.
it's all necessary, man. Like, even in the marijuana space, there's so many pharmacists that are prescribing drugs right now that marijuana would do a way better job than the chemicals that you're about to prescribe to a person.
Mm.
And it's just a matter of just getting people out of that old way of thinking that, oh man, weed is a bad drug. It's a gateway. No, there's a lot of people that weed helps, but there's also a lot of people that weed messed up too. But you just have to know what's right for you.
Nah.
At the end of the day. And the crazy thing is we live in a country where like, hey, I'm chilling in this state. I can smoke all the weed I want. I drive over the state line. I'm in cuffs, and that in itself is ridiculous. And when
No,
you repeat it to yourself 5 times, you're like, yo, how is this a thing? Why is this a thing? And I know, like, incarceration, putting people behind bars is big business, but we got to cut that out because in the true scope of everything, it is slavery.
mm.
Taking a human being, getting free labor, getting free money just because you have that person in captivity is slavery. It is people doing real crimes, and you going to holler at my man because he had an ounce, it's ridiculous.
As you mentioned that HeadKrack, I want to kind of stay there, but ask you. I've been doing this, like I said, for 2 decades, and in doing this work, I've been around a lot and seen a lot, as you can imagine. From my early days of working with Russell and Diddy and Jay-Z up until Sierra, 2 Chainz, T.I., you name it, and that's a lot. And being at the cusp of a lot of this, trying to and recognizing how powerful our culture is. I want to ask you this question because you are perfect from the standpoint that if I am doing this work, I actually want to find you so that I can find folks who have some kind of understanding of wanting to help our people. And so then when I latch on to that, no matter where they are, and sometimes people come to me and they say, "Is it only the conscious artists?" I say, "No, you'd be surprised. It's folks from the dirty, the streets who have actually got a want to help our community, but we have to allow them to go from always say, from the Cassius Clays to the Muhammad Ali's.
Right.
So this is my question to you in this. Do you, as you see things today, though, and we're in a spot where we need to have our Harry Belafontes, our Lena Hornes, our Aretha Franklins who support the movement. Do you think that we can use our culture to create change the way that we need to? Or are there forces that are in play that will pull that to a stop if it gets too serious?
I definitely believe that there are forces in play that'll pull that. And the thing is, it's unraveling from multiple angles. Okay. So when you talk about hip hop, right? A lot of radio stations and media outlets will support or not support an artist based on relevancy. Okay.
Mm.
So let's just say if the only hip hop activist voice you know of is Chuck D, but you don't know about Immortal Technique, you don't know about Dead Prez and the things that they're doing in the health and wellness space, the stuff that Styles P does in the health and wellness space. A lot of these people don't even get the opportunity to speak on larger formats sometimes because they ain't hot right now. And when you look at the people who are making that decision as to who's hot right now and who isn't, it's like, yo, you're not qualified to say that or make that or have that opinion. That part frustrates me a lot. And that's why I work harder to try to get these voices on my platform, when the opportunities present themselves. Because we do such a great job of throwing these heroes away. Because like a Harry Belafonte was never allowed to be thrown away because we didn't do that to
we were there to protect that process.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So there's something about, for whatever reason, hip hop, like, if you haven't had a hot record in a few years, it's like your opinion doesn't matter. Why should we listen to you? Why should we put them on this radio station and let them talk? They haven't done nothing in a while. Oh, such and such is old ass. Like, yo, like, we don't celebrate the fact that these people have like circled the block a few times and maybe seen some things that we haven't and give them the opportunity to speak. And we're doing that to ourselves. That mentality that a lot of these, gatekeepers that, have created on a corporate side, that mentality has spilled into the youth to a degree to where no one who is like 13 through, let's say, 24 wants to hear anything that anyone 45 and up has to say. And these are the people who have lived and seen the things on the other side of the hill that eventually you're going to get to. So I definitely think that creates a large problem because it makes it very difficult for us to appoint these elder statesmen as the people who are going to really speak for us and speak to us as a culture, because we're quick to write them off. And I think that's terrible because like we're the only culture that I feel like that really does that actively. And I've seen that play out so many times, and I've gotten into so many arguments with so many people in positions of power because I'm not okay with letting y'all do this to our voices, to the people that inspired me, to the people that inspired you at some point. So it's a never-ending fight. And the thing is, as more people like us get these opportunities to have our platforms, aside from the other things, it does give those beacons that allow these voices to be heard. And I think that's a plus size, but we gotta let these people who want to lead, we at least gotta hear them out. Because we'll be quick to throw a person away. Like, even when T.I. tries to be, Mountain Luther T.I. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, but what about when you was, when you have a menage a trois tip, like, yo, but later for that, let the man live. But what he's trying to tell you is valid. We're always, like if Jesus came back today, we call him crazy and kill him. Because we don't trust nothing and we don't trust nobody.
Well, technically again, because he was killed the first time. But yeah.
Exactly. We would kill him again. He might have already been.
He would. It's crazy you say that because I think what happens there a lot of times We said so much there, actually. I want to unpack that. There's something that happens there within our own movement, where one of the great things, kind of looking to the past, is that they were somewhat allowed to be human because we were within our own community, meaning that we kind of understood if we were having fun, if we had our music, if we had our own fashion, we understood what all that meant in regards to our liberation and our survival. I think sometimes there's this thing now where a lot of folks, both who are with activists or artists, feel that they can't make any mistakes. And in some cases, you don't want to do things that are, that are crazy, but make human mistakes. It's enjoying life mistakes.
Right.
And so what happens there is that folks on the activist side feel they have to then go about this kind of thing to be perfect and to be, in essence, another Martin Luther King. And sometimes artists who are in this work, they too then feel, if I become political, then I have to be this, I have to be another Dr. Martin Luther King or whoever in that same regard. Instead of realizing Dr. King was human and made a lot of mistakes, and that part gets erased. So as you're thinking about this, do you think that's a hindrance to a lot of artists and influencers who want to get political because people will say, will do what you just kind of did, not intentionally, but kind of like, Martin Luther T.I. in that aspect, will kind of hold up a little bit more of a magnifying glass to them. So they're kind of afraid because they can just be kind of, I'm going to be over here, be a little bit ratchet and be over here. But if I get political, folks are going to look at me, they're going to be like, Megan Thee Stallion somehow cleaned the beaches, but that's Megan Thee Stallion, or you know what I mean? Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, so how do we allow for artists to still be artists and to be who they are, but to also be political?
I think as an artist, you have to understand how cool you actually are. People came on this ride with you because whatever it is that you were doing, they believed in it to begin with. And I think sometimes to maintain a certain level of relevancy, artists sometimes are afraid of taking creative risk because how will my fan base think? Or what, will this sell as the last, well as the last thing that I did, that wasn't necessarily at this note. And you can't lose your nuts in this. You gotta be just as bold and confident with your messaging as you were when you're coming out. Regardless what your message was when you came out, but you have to evolve and grow. I think one of the first examples I saw of this growing up, right, was when Raekwon dropped his second album, Immobilarity. He wanted to give y'all growth, knowledge, and raise your consciousness. But the fans was like, what happened to that dude that was selling cocaine on the last album? I'd be like, yo, I'd be disappointed if Raekwon was doing that on the last album, on the album after, Only Built for Cuban Links, because you gotta grow. Very few artists have figured out how to take the audience on that ride with them and grow up and do it successfully. And the most shining example I could think of that is Jay-Z.
No doubt. Yeah.
But he made the type of risk that one could make when you've amassed this certain amount of dollars, and it doesn't matter how many copies your album sells because you kind of fixed the fight to make sure the units do what they're supposed to do anyway. And people listen to Jay-Z. And I think people need to take a book out of Jay-Z's, take a page out of Jay-Z's book and figure out how to apply that science to what it is they do. And I got to commend T.I. because there was a few albums that he really wanted to show y'all the growth, and they paid him in crickets, and it's just unfortunate because you can't expect these people to not evolve and not get to a different place. Cause if you started, if you were trapping on your first album in 2001 and we're still trapping in 2020, you're a terrible trapper. At this point, you don't got enough money to build a store yet? Come on, bruh. Really? You out there still serving nicks on Bankhead? No one's going to believe that. So we have to let our people, we have to grow up, and we have to let our artists that we love grow up too. And I know, I mentioned T.I., Jay-Z, but I mean, there are other examples, but I think those are two of the most notable ones who have made really good attempts. I mean, even with Kendrick Lamar, as many messages as Kendrick Lamar was dropping, Radio didn't let him be great. So he said, "Pull up, drink, pull up, drink." It's Gonna Be All Right should have been the new Negro national anthem. Didn't get nearly as much play as, some of his other records. I mean, Be Humble, Sit Down did pretty well. And, but he took the risk, and those risks work for Kendrick Lamar. Another artist who does it really well, J. Cole. So more and more people are stepping out and doing it, but there's so many others that I wish would still be here.
Yeah, no. And so, man, I knew that this conversation HeadKrack would go there. I knew it would go there. So we about to go all the way in on this conversation. And it's such an important one for the culture and for what's happening right now during this time. And one of the reasons I bring that up is that I also want to give a lens. I've been doing this for years, and you're right. A lot of times I've watched the growth. I was right there with Jay in the beginning for his first, political campaign. It was called Voice Your Choice, and he was working with Reebok. We had a red, white, and blue Reebok that Jay-Z had, and which was a part of like doing voter registration. But that's where he was. This is back in 2004, and to see him grow and continue to grow for me is exciting in that aspect. And I also have seen him, to be honest, stumble along the way, trying to grow, which is also a part of the process.
Part of growth.
And so, yeah, it's part of growth, right? And so, and see him continue to work out, what it means to be fighting for your community. And I've seen that with him and many, many, many others. Mm-hmm. HeadKrack, the one thing that I've seen, though, is that our women, particularly our Black women artists, don't get that same kind of pass. Mm-mm. And I've seen that, and one person particularly comes to mind is Amber Rose. We did our voting campaign with Amber Rose, Respect My Vote, which is the longest running hip hop voting campaign out there. And hopefully we'll definitely connect you. We have to connect you into this process.
I'm more than down, because I remember when Respect My Vote first came out, and I thought it was an amazing thing, and I talked about it a lot, on back when I was still on the Ricky Smiley Morning Show, because hip hop has to stay involved, and a lot of times we only know to vote when someone cool is running, or if it's the presidential elections, and no one really pays attention to the midterms and all these other ones that affect
and the state locally. And local, which absolutely, voting for your all that. So we're definitely gonna, and folks listening, please go to respectmyvote.com. Check all that out right now, because we have a great campaign there. Also trying to get those who are returning citizens, those who are in prison, to make sure that they can be part of this process too. So anyways, just go there and check that out. But the reason I bring this up is this: we had Amber Rose, and we've had many other artists, even when we had Sierra, and we've had, I go on the list, right? Keisha Cole. People don't give them, to me, in my time of doing this work, they don't give Black women that same kind of chance to grow. Why do you think that is?
I don't understand the psychology of it at all. And the crazy thing is, you're seeing a lot more of an influx, more so in the hip hop rap space, of more female MCs. But it seemed like, for the last 20 years or so, even longer than that, they were just lucky to be there, right? So I don't think anyone has truly cracked the code on how to have a 10-year marathon run as an artist that grows and gets out of the, that sex pot image that usually gets them in the door. You know what I'm saying? Because not saying that every female artist is doing that, but the ones who come in just on the strength of their skills and talent don't necessarily get put on the highest pedestal as they should. You know what I'm saying? We should hear from more Rhapsodies. We should hear from more Moo Freshes. We should hear from more Lyric Joneses. There's so many names I could throw out there. And I don't know what it is about this business that the only way we'll give a female a chance if we feel like we have a chance with that female. Sonically, sexually. through the music, through the optics that they give us. I can't front me myself. I had the Little Kim hardcore poster on my wall because who didn't, right? But at the end of the day, once the milk goes bad, what do you do? And I know it frustrates them because, like, hey, like, I don't look, no one looks how they looked when they were 20, when they're 45, when they're 50. So where can we go from there? And if we only allow these people to show us this one skill, how can they evolve that? And how can they have a bigger voice in the larger scope of things? Because media aside, when it comes to the home, especially considering that a lot of men are out of houses, women are truly the leaders in a lot of scenarios. So why are they not allowed to lead in media? Why are they not allowed to have more of a diverse color palette sonically within the music than they've been allowed to have? And and I wish I truly had the answer to that question, and I don't, because all I see when I look around is just so many people who have the potential to do more, and it sucks, like, because even like somebody like MC Light, who didn't necessarily lean on her sexuality to be a household name, and even Queen Latifah, they had to do other things to maintain relevancy that didn't necessarily 100% have anything to do with rap, or music. Like Queen Latifah started acting, then you found out she could sing. And then, MC Light, you'd be watching your favorite awards show coming up next. Like and then she's producing and doing things. So, I want to see female artists have as long of a lifeline as male artists. Because even on the R&B scope, you mentioned Keisha Cole. Man, y'all love Keisha Cole when she was in pain, screaming about love. But the second she got booed up, made a whole album about how she in love, y'all hated it because she wasn't miserable with y'all no more. Why do we do that to ourselves? Michael Jackson voice. Why they do me that way? Like let these people grow.
No, that's real, and I think I was. This is a shout out for Hip Hop Caucus. When I came into this, I saw this a lot, and I just saw some things that just to me wasn't cool. How particularly a lot of the women artists were treated, and having the platform that I have, Hip Hop Caucus, I was like, well, I'm gonna do what I can do. I'm gonna try to change that. I'm gonna try to make sure they have a role, and it isn't a role where they have to feel any old kind of way. And I want them to have that space. And I agree with you. I do think that particularly our women, there, as you know, there is no revolution without women, and so I think that we have to make sure we understand that. So I am hopeful that what we are doing on the hip hop political side that carries over. I think it's carry over regardless. I think that they're not going to wait. I think that they're not waiting, and so I'm glad to hear you be encouraging in that aspect.
Like I came up with a platform called The Take, where I bring artists on and I give them the opportunity, and they get like one take. If they fuck up, that's the take, right? And I made it a point to showcase and highlight as many female MCs as I could, right? One of the first MCs that came through Rev was this unknown chick by the name of Meg Thee Stallion. Blazed it. One take, murdered it. A couple months later, Meg Thee Stallion is out of here. Not because she did take, because she was talented anyway, right? Then you also have Amaretta the Great, another person who's making major noise right now, just on the strength of her pen game and her talent. Like, I don't know if you heard this record she got out right now called Not Atlanta. She's like basically talking about like the city of Atlanta, how a lot of people claim they're from Atlanta. It's like, yo, Clayton County is not Atlanta. South Cobb is not Atlanta. And everybody's going crazy about it because, like, there's a lot of people who claim the city who are not from here, who are not really from Atlanta. So there are so many different ways where people could get on, but we just have to continue to create those outlets, whether it's through Hip Hop Caucus, whether it's through The Take, whether it's a DJ who happens to be watching this, who maybe has a little bit more flexibility than other DJs who can just drop the needle on an artist who ain't showing you areola, but is showing you skill.
That's right.
Because they're out there.
No, that's real. And so we listen, y'all. If you in the culture, you doing this work, please. We got to move this thing. We got to move the ball forward. in that regard. So definitely, you heard it from myself, Rev, and HeadKrack telling you that. HeadKrack, let me ask you this question because I want to kind of talk about a little bit about some of the stuff in climate because and how you can help. So let me paint the picture first.
Okay.
One of the things in the climate movement, you won't notice. I'm telling you something new here, so you gotta let me give you the
love new
background.
information. I'm a fan of it.
Yeah. The climate movement is an amazing movement, and we are in a crisis. There is a serious climate crisis, which we can see through hurricanes, wildfires, droughts, floods, on and on and on. It's real serious. And if we don't get a handle on it, we don't transition from fossil fuels to clean energy, then it'll have an immense impact, particularly on those who are most vulnerable, Black and Brown and Indigenous communities who are on the front lines of the crisis. That's the background. This is the thing where I need your help. Okay. So, HeadKrack, one of the things that I've noticed in doing this work with folks in the climate movement is that they're great people, but they're not good communicators, right? Okay. They're not really good at that. They're not good at taking something and literally making it hot or making it sexy or making it relevant in that case. They give a lot of data, a lot of different good points. So how can I get folks like you and other folks within the industry to begin to weave in the storytelling or the narrative into our process? What would you want to have to be like, all right, Rev, what's the problem? And so what do you think you want? And if I said, hey, go out and organize other folks in the industry, what do you think y'all would want to help make this crisis more relevant to our community?
Well, for me personally, I'm usually at my best when I'm armed with information. So I always try to make it a point to learn something new every day, or like get a fact that I didn't know. Like earlier when you was telling me about how, like, when the Bronx was created, the way they did the overpasses so white people don't have to stop. That was news to me, but I get it now. So, even if it was a situation where daily through whether it be the social media of Hip Hop Caucus or even like, widgets that you can get that could pop up on your phone with just, little cool, slick, hip facts to where like you could spread that information. Cause sometimes when you microdose information to people, it's easier to receive it versus like, getting a whole spill about how everything works at one time. And then you pick up these little factoids and you kind of like, they nest in your brain and like you recite the stuff to other people, because it's conversational. We're all gonna be occupying planet Earth until the day we die. It's a fact, right? So how can we maintain this longer than ever? How can we get more people to understand the importance of bees? How can we get people to understand that if you're in a position to where you can cut back on your usage of fuel, it's probably for the best. Turn that light off. You're not using it. All these little things that I think sometimes get lost on people. If we can just get this information in bite-sized little fun facts. Remember, like back in the days, I don't know if you was a Snapple drinker, but you ever used to read the Snapple facts?
Yeah, it was facts.
Yo, man, Cash used to walk around reciting that like we went to college or something.
No, it's like it was like.
So like, yo, if the Hip Hop Caucus can hit you with a cool fact every day, shoot, I'll drop a cool fact every day on my radio show.
There it is.
That's my part of taking the information baton and passing it on. And that's what we're supposed to do truly as gatekeepers. Not only to create opportunity, but also spread that information to increase not only the value of life, but hey, listen, man, we only got one Earth. We got to figure out a way to, keep this thing alive. Cause like Mother Earth trying to balance the scales, man, between you know what I'm saying? Between these crazy weather patterns we catching and these brand new, viruses that's dropping like mixtapes, she trying to move us around because we ain't treating her right.
You're definitely not treating us right. Well, we're definitely not treating her right, that's for sure.
Yeah, we ain't treating her right.
I just got two more questions for you, man. I just want to thank you for this time. This was amazing in this regard. The first question really goes into more of a global standpoint. Is hip hop, man. Our reach is incredible. I was in Cape Town, South Africa, before the pandemic, like 2019, right before, and I realized how much the culture has an impact on the globe. How do we use that power, that global power, and what's our responsibility to our brothers and sisters around the globe who are watching you and watching others?
The tricky thing, I feel like, more so than ever before, I'm seeing it utilized. Before, the only voices that people were hearing from within the culture were coming from here. And now, as we're peeling the veil back on the rest of the globe, you're starting to hear these voices that are speaking in languages we don't know, but they're speaking our language of hip hop. And they're really galvanizing the people. So I think the only thing that we can do better is maybe network a little bit more with our brothers and sisters across the pond, because I don't think we understand each other's plight in its entirety. Because we still have people over here in America who ignorantly think, our brothers and sisters in Africa is out there rocking grass skirts because they don't have the access. Well, okay, they don't utilize the access to the information. I mean, we can Google anything these days, but I think ignorance keeps us in our corners sometimes. And I think if we could create more pipelines to where we can have similar dialogue with people on the other side of the country, just to understand what their plight and the things that they're going through are, I think we'll realize that we have a lot more in common, and that we also have a lot more that we need to learn about other parts of the world. Some people only know about the happenings in their own state, city, and town. There's some people in New York who have never left their borough. There's some people who have never left their particular state. So we have to use all this technology that we have right now that our people didn't have before us, and use that to continue to make the world smaller and get the information from, people around the world who are going through a similar experience, but with different circumstances. And I think the more we understand that about them, the more they can understand about us. And I think we can move better and just be armed with more information.
Yeah, well said. How can people best support you, find you, all that good stuff?
Yo, man, I got a YouTube channel, youtube.com/HeadKrack. Sometimes I'm throwing new music videos up there. Sometimes I'm throwing an interview up there. My most recent one, I got as many people as I can get from New Edition. I got Johnny Gill, I got Ricky Bell, and I got Roddy DeVoe. And they on tour right now. They doing amazing things. Their show is amazing. Also, I'm talking to, a bunch of different hip hop artists and whatnot. And also my YouTube channel, also my Instagram page, Instagram.com/HeadKrack. Subscribe to me on Spotify. Got brand new music coming, a new EP coming out soon called Microdose. And I also have another project that I'm cooking up with my man D Cross that's sounding crazy. And also don't forget my work with my 3-man hip hop group, the Bodega Brothers, with like the United Colors of Benetton, except with raps. You know what I mean? So, staying working, staying creative, trying to motivate the people and keep myself motivated in the process.
Oh, man, my brother, I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you, Rev.
Yeah. And that's our guest today. And he is HeadKrack, host of The Morning Hustle in This Nation. And I am Rev Yearwood, your host of The Coolest Show. My brother, thank you so much
for being on The Coolest Show. This has truly been a blast, and this truly is The Coolest Show.
Man, appreciate you.
This is The Coolest Show, brought to you by Hip Hop Caucuses. Think 100%.
It's the coolest show, keep the culture connected. It's the coolest show, in your ear, yeah, respected. Expert level information, entertainment, education. Rev Yearwood got you covered as you hit your destination. Climate rules everything around me. For those who lost focus,